Sometimes the biggest leadership challenge is not open resistance. It's the quiet hesitation that keeps people from moving, even when the path has been made clear. Ready to grow with resilience, clarity, and confidence in leadership, career, and faith? Welcome to The Next Move. I'm Orvin Kimbrough, CEO, author, and founder of The Thriver's Path. I went from foster care to the CEO seat, and here's what I learned. Transformation doesn't start with a title. It starts with your next move. How you reframe your thinking, reclaim your agency, and rename what's possible. If you're done circling and ready to step forward, you're in the right place. Let's make your next move your best move. Welcome back to The Next Move, the podcast where we explore faith, leadership, and personal growth to help you take your next step with purpose and confidence. Folks, I'm your host, Orvin Kimbrough. I'm so grateful you are here. We've been talking a lot about the different facets of leadership and giving very practical tools, very, very practical tools. Today, I want to talk about hesitation, not laziness, not incompetence, not rebellion, hesitation. And I want to talk about it because in this season, many leaders are trying to move organizations forward while carrying people who are not yet ready to move with the same confidence, speed, or clarity. That matters now because the pace of change is not slowing down. Technology is changing, expectations are changing, workflows are changing, customer needs are changing, and yet beneath all of that change, there are people trying to figure out whether they are safe enough to take the next step. So today, I don't want to simply talk about how to make people move faster. I want to invite us to reflect on what is really happening when people hesitate. Because sometimes hesitation is not a work problem. Sometimes hesitation is a confidence problem. Sometimes it is a trust problem. Sometimes it is a fear problem. And if we misdiagnose it, we will mishandle the person. I saw this recently in a very practical way. Someone on my team avoided using an automated system and went back to manual emails. Now, on the surface, this was a simple process issue. The system was there. The training had happened. The workflow was available. The task should have taken minutes. Instead, it took hours. And as a leader, I could have reacted only to the inefficiency. I could have said, why are you still doing it this way? I could have focused only on the time loss, the duplication, the delay. And let me be clear, those things matter. Time matters, process matters, execution matters, accountability matters. But when I looked a little deeper, I realized something. The issue was not skill, it was fear. Fear of pressing the wrong button, fear of making a mistake, fear of creating a problem that could not be undone, fear of being exposed, fear of blame, fear of being seen as someone who didn't know what they were doing. And that is when it hit me again. When people are afraid to fail, they often choose not to move at all. They don't always say it out loud. They don't always name it as fear. They may call it caution. They may call it double checking. They may call it wanting to be thorough. And sometimes those things are true. But sometimes what looks like caution is really fear dressed up as responsibility. Did you catch that? Sometimes what looks like caution is really fear dressed up as responsibility. And that kind of hesitation has a cost. Hesitation becomes delay. Delay becomes frustration. Frustration becomes mistrust. And before long, the leader isn't just managing the work. The leader is carrying the emotional weight of everybody's uncertainty. That's why Isaiah 41:10 matters so much here. Fear not, fear not, fear not, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. That scripture is often read as comfort, and it is comfort. But I also hear leadership instruction in it. God does not simply say, do not be afraid. He tells us why. He tells us why. He says, I am with you. He says, I will strengthen you. I will help you. In other words, courage does not come from pretending fear is not real. Courage comes from knowing you are not alone. That's true spiritually, and it's true organizationally. People move differently when they know they are not alone. People try differently when they know a mistake will be coached, not weaponized. People grow differently when they know the leader is not waiting to shame them, but standing near enough to strengthen them. that does not mean we remove accountability. That does not mean we excuse repeated avoidance. That does not mean we let people hide behind fear forever. But it does mean we lead the whole person, because leadership is not just task execution. Leadership is emotional stewardship, and emotional stewardship means I am paying attention not only to what you produce, but to what is getting in the way of your production. I am paying attention to the system. I am paying attention to the fear. I am paying attention to the confidence gap. I am paying attention to what the hesitation is telling me. This is where the thriver's path becomes practical. We help people move from stuck to strengthened. And hesitation is one of the places where people get stuck. They get stuck between what they know and what they trust. They get stuck between the instruction and the confidence to act. They get stuck between exposure and ownership. They get stuck because something inside them says, if I move and fail, I may not recover. And leaders have to know how to meet people there, not with hype, not with shame, not with impatience disguised as urgency, but with clarity, care, and courage. Let me offer just 3 reflections for leading people through hesitation. First, reframe hesitation as information. When someone is not moving, don't immediately assume they don't care. Ask what the hesitation is revealing. Is the process unclear? Is the system intimidating? Have mistakes been punished in the past? Is the person carrying old experiences into a new environment? Do they understand the why behind the work? Are they afraid that one mistake will define them? That doesn't mean every delay is acceptable, but it does mean every delay is telling you something. A wise leader listens before labeling. Second, reclaim your role as a builder of confidence, not just a driver of performance. Performance matters. I believe in results. Lord knows I believe in results. I believe in execution. I believe leaders are responsible for momentum. But one of the ways we create sustainable performance is by building people who can carry responsibility with confidence. That means sometimes you have to slow down long enough to help someone speed up later. You have to show them the system. You have to let them practice. You have to define what a good mistake looks like. You have to create guardrails so that taking action does not feel like stepping off a cliff. Because when people don't feel safe to fail, they will not feel free to lead. And if they never feel free to lead, the work will always come back to who? It will come back to you. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting for them, and it's exhausting for you. Third, rename what is possible. A hesitant person does not have to stay hesitant. A slow mover does not have to stay stuck. Someone who is afraid today can become someone who leads with confidence tomorrow, but they need a different story. They need to stop seeing mistakes as evidence that they don't belong. They need to start seeing mistakes as part of how mastery is formed. They need to stop seeing systems as threats. They need to start seeing systems as support. They need to stop seeing ownership as danger. They need to start seeing ownership as development. Folks, that's transformation. Reframe the hesitation, reclaim the responsibility, rename the possibility. That's the work. And leaders, I want to say this gently but directly. Sometimes the reason people hesitate is because our leadership has not made the next step clear enough. Sometimes we have moved so fast in our own minds, I'm talking to myself too, in our own minds, that we forget someone else is still trying to catch up emotionally. Sometimes we confuse explanation with understanding. Sometimes we confuse access to a tool with readiness to use it. Sometimes we confuse silence with agreement. So the question is not simply, why won't they move? The deeper question is, what do they need in order to move with confidence? That question changes how we lead. It moves us from irritation to curiosity, from blame to coaching, from control to development, and from carrying all of the work ourselves to building people who can carry the work with us. Now, I want to speak to the person listening who may be the hesitant one. Maybe you are the one afraid to press the button. Maybe you are the one overthinking the next step. Maybe you are the one waiting until you feel perfectly ready. Let me encourage you. Confidence does not always come before movement. Sometimes confidence comes because you move. Sometimes you take the step while your hands are still shaking. Sometimes you learn the system by using the system. Sometimes you discover strengths after you stop avoiding the thing that scares you. Isaiah says, "Fear not, for I am with you." That does not mean you will never feel fear. It means fear does not get the final word. You're not stuck. You're being strengthened. And your next move may not be dramatic. It may simply be doing the thing that you have been avoiding, using the tool, having a conversation, asking a question, taking ownership, trying again. So here's the reframe. Hesitation is not always a character flaw. Sometimes it is undeveloped confidence. Here's the reclaim. As leaders, we are responsible for creating enough clarity, safety, and accountability for people to move. And as individuals, we're responsible for not allowing fear to permanently delay our growth. And here's the rename. What looks like hesitation today can become courage tomorrow when it is met with the right leadership, the right support, the right next step. I hope you appreciate the redundancy in this message. It's so important. So this week, I want you to examine one place where hesitation is slowing the work. Maybe it's someone on your team. Maybe it's a process people keep avoiding. Maybe it's a conversation that keeps getting delayed. Maybe it's you. Don't start with judgment. Start with curiosity. Ask what fear might be underneath this delay. Ask what clarity is missing. Ask what support will help movement. Ask what next step needs to be made plain, because you're not just leading the work, you're leading the person. And when you lead the person well, the work begins to move differently. Until next time, keep leading with courage, keep growing with grace, and keep taking your next move. Thanks for spending time with me on The Next Move. I hope today's reflection helped you see your situation differently and reminded you that you're not stuck, you're being strengthened. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's standing at the edge of their next move. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's ahead. For deeper reflections, tools, and guided pathways for growth, visit orvinkimbrough.com and explore the Thriver's Path. Until next time, remember, every small step taken with intention moves you closer to the life and leadership you're becoming. Let's keep moving forward together.